Whew. Hello, everybody. Oh, baby, we got a long one today. Well, not that long, but this is a big one. We're going to be doing a little walking and talking tour of Canal Street, the famous Canal Street. It's going to be a good one, baby. You're going to want to watch this one. Phil, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm glad to hear you're doing good as well. Yeah, man, before we start, if you've seen one of these before, you know what you're in for, so go ahead and like and subscribe now. Also, too, check out the Patreon at some point. That's a huge help. So I found these things. There's some extras on there. Extra walks, even. Oh, baby. All right, well, anyways, I'm rambling. Let's walk. What do you think, man? We got a lot of stuff to cover today.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
It's going to be fun, though.
Hey, man, I like your attitude. Let's do it. So, we are starting here at the beginning, the east side of Canal Street. A couple of things before we cross the street. Look up there, Phil. You see that building?
Yes,
with all the fancy lettering and everything? Well, not fancy, it's Hebrew. This is the Jewish Forward building. This building was built in 1912. The Jewish Forward was a Yiddish newspaper started by a man named Abraham Kahan in 1897. And what the whole idea was, we're in the Lower East Side, kind of, at the end of it. And he started it to kind of help his Jewish brothers and sisters acclimate to a new place, a new country. So he would teach them things like the rules of baseball, and like what it was to live here, all that kind of stuff. So it was a way to get people acclimated because there was a ton of Jewish people coming here in the late 1800s. I've covered that in my lower. You can watch all the videos that connect to this, by the way, if you want all the deep history, because we're walking today. Also, too, before we go, this is Seward Park here. Before we walk, this is Seward Park. You may not know the name William Seward. You know the name William Seward, Phil?
I believe he was the Secretary of State during Lincoln's presidency.
Look at you, man. You know that, huh? That only because we were talking right before we started filming. Don't let him fool you, people. Yes, that's correct. But more interesting, here, I want to get on this side here and get all this stuff down here. But more interesting than that is the fact that there was an attempt on his life the same night as Abraham Lincoln. So the same night that John Wilkes Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln, a man named Lewis Powell tried to assassinate William Seward. And, this is crazy, they were going to try to kill Andrew Johnson the same day too, and that one was aborted. But they did actually carry through the William Seward one, it just didn't work. He was at home, like nursing an injury, and the guy pretended like he was coming to give him he was coming to help him, whatever, with remedies and crap. And so they were able to sneak into the house, and the son got into a wrestling altercation with the assassin outside of the guy's bedroom, and he discharged his gun. But he eventually got into the bedroom and used his knife and stabbed him multiple times. So William Seward died with he didn't die then, but later on in his life he had a bunch of scars still from it. Kind of wild. Crazy story, huh, Phil? The whole idea initially was to take the bottom out of the government. It wasn't just Lincoln that they wanted to kill. They wanted to take the whole government out. So check it out. So you're at a funeral district. Well, not funeral district, sorry, a funeral home. You got people getting ready for a funeral. Pretty cool. By the way, we are in Chinatown, just so you guys know. That's where we're kind of walking through. But this is cool. Look at that. Jarmulowski's Bank. This is a cool building. I believe it's 1912. I believe it's 1912. But beautiful little Beaux-Arts building, huh? Now it's a fancy hotel. By the way, we are walking through. If you look back this area, you see the little outdoor seating and stuff, and this whole area is what they call Dime Square. You heard of this, Phil? You've heard of this, right? You're in touch with the youth. This is the really I guess at least it was for a bit.
It's definitely a popular area.
It was, yeah. Yeah, and there's tons of people out here on the weekends during the day and stuff. Packed, just packed. And it's all 23-year-olds and stuff doing TikTok dances. I sound like an old man. Sorry, that's really bad. But yeah, it's called Dime Square. Oh crap! Here, let's cross here. I want to show you something. I want to get run over. Here, yeah, let's walk over here. I want to show you this as we walk. This is, like I said, Jarmulowski's Bank. Was a bank, obviously. we'll talk about those later too. There's a bunch we're going to see on this walk. So this is all Canal, walking all the way here. We're going to take Canal all the way to the end. All the way to the end, you freaks. You're going to be in for a long haul here. So we're walking by Allen Street. All these streets like Allen, Ludlow, Christie, they're all named after the War of 1812
Really?
dudes. Yeah. In fact, I think we already, there's Ludlow there. It was named actually back when we were over there. I forgot to mention it then, but Augustus Ludlow was the man who that's named after. And he was on a ship with a guy named James Lawrence, who famously died in the battle. But his last words were, "Don't give up the ship." Pretty cool. He died saying, "Don't give up the ship." It was like a famous naval saying or whatever. Don't give up the ship. Yeah. And so Ludlow died too. But that was the captain's last words. He was the second in command. This is another guy who died. So we'll see a few. Eldridge as well, we'll see that. Across here. Yeah, so this is kind of cool. Check this out, Phil. We'll see. I'll show you the fire station, huh? But this one is called the Chinatown Dragons. You can see the Dragon Fighters, sorry. You can see the little logo there. You can buy a t-shirt if you want. It's an engine and ladder. You know what that means? Engine and ladder?
No.
So ladder means it's one of the trucks with a ladder on it.
Oh, okay.
And stuff to reach higher stuff and all that.
An
Engine is the pumps for the water.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes you'll get an engine company, sometimes you get a ladder company, sometimes you get an engine ladder company. It's pretty cool. So yeah, you can. Some of these are pretty some of the fire companies are they're like famous or they have cool logos and stuff, so they sell merch. Gotta sell merch, baby. always be promoting.
Wouldn't be America.
That's exactly. You gotta sell merch, baby. So yeah, they sell like shirts and stuff. Cause how else are you gonna pay for the Xbox subscription in the break room? Come on. You gotta get yelled at by 12-year-olds while you play Call of Duty, waiting for the next fire. And so we're coming up now to Forsyth. And then there's Christie. We passed Allen earlier. But you have Sarah Roosevelt Park, which kind of stretches all the way up to Houston. You'll see that when we cross over. It's a pretty cool little view. And it's a kind of rainy day today. So it's not the most, I guess, lively out, but there's people. All right, so chill out. Enjoy it. It's quiet. We're not getting accosted by people, which is nice. And not a lot.
Gives us more room to walk around.
Exactly. This is our set. We got a whole set here to play with. So you'll see the park over here. But you'll start seeing obviously the Chinese lettering. You can see them. You see Fujian, Fuzhou. You see all that. This is all they call New Chinatown. A lot of the newer Chinese immigrants. We're gonna walk kind of through Chinatown, but a lot of them come from the Fujian province, which is on the water, but it has more of a history of shipping and people leaving and emigrating as opposed to other parts of China. But this is what they call New Chinatown because more of the newer ones are coming here. The older ones, like the original ones, not old because it's a recent phenomenon here, were coming from like the Guangdong province, which is right around the Fujian province, but it's different. It's also like around where Hong Kong is and all that. So they were the ones who came initially in like the 1960s and all that stuff when the floodgates really opened. But I'll get to all that when we get to Chinatown. Check it out. Look at this view, huh, Phil? Pretty cool. You can see the World Trade Center.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, look at that little fog. Look at that pretty little fog, huh? There's the World Trade Center. There's 56 Leonard, the little Jenga building in Tribeca. This is the park. So the park's interesting. On a nice day, this park will be packed. People will be all around
Yeah, playing
soccer and gambling.
Yeah, gambling on soccer.
Gambling on soccer, gambling on, Chinese chess and stuff. Xiangqi, I think it's how you butcher that pronunciation, but it's Chinese chess. And then you have here, you can see all the buildings there. That's all, there's World Trade Center, that's Lower Manhattan. We're not very far from it. We'll talk about it as we get closer. But here to the left, to my left too as we cross, look at that, you'll see there. here is the Manhattan Bridge. The Manhattan Bridge was built in 1909. 1909, remember, so we'll get a better view of it, but 1909 it was built because Brooklyn had exploded so much. Remember, the Brooklyn Bridge was built in 1883. And because of that, Brooklyn exploded. So then it needed a new bridge, which was the Williamsburg Bridge in 1903, and then the Manhattan Bridge in 1909. So, you got this great view here. Check it out, Phil. There it is right there. Pretty cool. So this was built, like I said, the bridge was built in 1909. Remember, it makes the down under Manhattan Bridge overpass, Dumbo. Ah, pretty cool. I once had someone in a video try to correct me saying that it's district under Manhattan Bridge overpass. It's not true. I mean, look, maybe someone calls it that, but the actual like neighborhood alliance or whatever calls it down under Manhattan Bridge overpass. So save your corrections to yourself. Keep them to yourself. You're probably wrong. But yeah, this is a beautiful entrance by Carrere and Hastings. Huh? Little Beaux-Arts. Beaux-Arts. Come on, Beaux-Arts architecture. They were the ones actually behind the New York Public Library. Very famous architects here in New York. But very beautiful little entrance. Was built a few years after the bridge was opened. This used to be like a whole plaza. There used to be two massive statues on the Brooklyn side. Brooklyn and Manhattan, modeled for by Audrey Munson, very famous woman. I did a video about her. She was the first supermodel in New York history.
Now the Honeyboo's are kind of ugly.
She modeled for tons of the statues and things in New York. And then she went crazy in her life, and spent decades in an insane asylum. And
Sounds like most famous people.
Yeah, I mean, most famous people probably belong in an insane asylum. Am I right? Huh? That was crazy. But here you have the old Citizen Savings Bank. It's now the HSBC. Beautiful building there on the Bowery, which we're gonna cross. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. You can start seeing the tops of buildings there. You can see the top of the municipal building, the top of the old, the courthouse, the federal courthouse. Here you have, this is Mahayana Buddhist temple. This is kind of a funny story. This is actually, the Buddhist temple has been in New York since the 60s, but this used to be a theater, a porn theater. And they refitted it, and inside it's a beautiful Buddhist temple. You actually walk in and check it out if you wanted to. And it's actually, it's interesting because, you know, where there used to be like heavy set, you know, chubby men with smiles on their faces, there's now a heavy-set chubby man with a smile on his face, Buddha, sitting there in a statue, and you can go, you know.
You think they have any of the leftover tapes?
I don't think so, you creep. I can go in and ask for you, you creep. Why don't you go in and ask? Hi, my name's Phil. I just wanted to check. Do you have any of the old tapes from decades ago? This is the Bowery, by the way. The Bowery. I just wanted to mention the Bowery is called that one because, well, this is one of the more important strips and streets in New York. It dates back to when the freaking colony started. It's called the Bowery after the old Dutch word for farm. Don't make me pronounce it, okay?
Pronounce it.
Bowery, whatever. It's called that because to the north, you'd have Peter Stuyvesant's farm. That's what he had up there. And in fact, that's where he retired to in 1664 when he got the boot and the British got here. And that's why it's called, because all the farms were up there in the East Village. So, and these used to all be elevated railway too, right? What we just crossed was all an elevated railway all the way up. And, you know, to like, you know, it would continue up 3rd Avenue, but to where like Astor Place is. You know, you have like,
It was right there.
Cooper Union and stuff, all that area, that was all elevated rail. So that was one of the reasons why the Bowery used to be like Skid Row. No one wanted to be there. It was all like prostitution and drunks and all this kind of stuff for a very long time. Theaters too. A lot of theater and stuff started there as well. In fact, Broadway, where all the theaters and stuff ended up, kind of sprouted up later, and it was for the more genteel. Initially, theater was for kind of everybody. It was like a big mishmash of rich and poor. And it wasn't until Broadway, you know, splintered off and became the more genteel that they kind of diverted. But yeah, that's where like, you know, they had like vaudeville and all kinds of like minstrel shows and stuff like that. Check this out, Phil. There's the bank I was talking about, the Citizen Savings Bank. But over here too, Elizabeth Street. But you can start seeing Chinatown, huh? Look at that. There's Chinatown. You got
Citibank over here.
Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't be Chinatown without Citibank, right? But yeah, you have all these This is really the kind of heart of Chinatown. You have Mott Street up here. Mott Street is really kind of the main drag. This is now getting to Old Chinatown. I was saying New Chinatown is over east of the Bowery, by the way. Old Chinatown is now here where we are. And what really separates it is just a couple things. One, it's where the initial immigrants were coming to from China. So even in like the 1800s, when there was just like 1,000 at the peak of like the end 1800s, 1,000 Chinese, they were mostly from, like I was saying before, the Guangdong. They were from Hong Kong, that area, and they spoke Cantonese as well. So you'll see Cantonese here more than you will over there. So there you can see also too another big thing is the flag. You'll see more of the actual Republic flag, the Taiwanese flag here, whereas on the other side you'll see more of the People's Republic flag, the Communist flag. You hear that, Phil? Trying to get some handbags and watches sold to us. You're looking for an authentic Rolex?
Yeah, right? Let's do it. Good quality stuff.
ROLLEXXX.
Hey, if you watch those recent viral videos,
What's that?
China apparently is making all the Louis Vuitton stuff.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
The real Louis Vuitton?
Well, that's the whole thing. People don't really know, but after the tariffs, they started releasing a lot of videos of like, you know, Chinese people in factories making Louis Vuitton stuff.
Oh wow, really?
And then saying like, hey, these people are lying to you. We're making it. They're
Oh
just
wow.
putting a stamp on it.
That's not surprising. That's the same way like, American cars or cars that are made in America or something that are made from all different parts and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, this is all Canal Street, by the way. Here, let's go off to the side. You want to keep the mic, or not I said the mic, but the camera down a little bit so you see everything here. But this is all Canal Street, called that because there used to be a canal here. Go figure. There was a canal that helped to drain a pond that was located here. Right nearby, there's actually a park now named after it called the Collect Pond Park, because there was a whole pond there that was drained in the early 1800s. And one of the reasons they drained it was to create kind of like a place to live for people. And it was, oh, by the way, this is Little Italy. Check it out.
It's not San Gennaro anytime soon, is it?
September. This is Mulberry Street. We're going to cover Mulberry Street at some point. But Mulberry Street starts down there and goes all the way up through Little Italy. Pretty cool. So anyways, what I was saying, the Canal Street helped drain Collect Pond, you know? So Collect Pond, they drained it and they filled it in, and then they wanted to build like middle class housing and all that stuff as the city was slowly expanding in the early 1800s. The problem was that landfill started to sink. And it created a whole mess. This mud is disgusting, so no one wanted to live there. So the only people who wanted to live there were the poor, and the poor at the time were the Irish. So the Irish moved in. It became kind of like a dirty, stinky place, and and it became the 5 Points. That was all the 5 Points started. And it was that canal that they say is still under the street here. Like there's still water there. That helped drain that Collect Pond. It was like a huge pond. It was like 50 acres or something, gigantic, you know? Yeah, it was big. Like a lake. And then you could start seeing like all the, so this is all Baxter Street. You can see the courthouse and stuff, courthouse. Old churches too, remember Little Italy. Check it out, Phil, over here. Most Precious Blood. You're asking about San Gennaro. That's the church that is associated with San Gennaro, which, by the way, is the feast of San Gennaro. I'll probably cover this in the Mulberry Street video, but it's basically just celebrating the patron saint of Naples, Italy, where a lot of the Napolese, by the way, lived on Mulberry Street, because at its peak, Little Italy was so big that different parts of Little Italy catered to different parts of Italy. So the Napolese lived on Mulberry. The Sicilians lived on Elizabeth Street. The northern Italians, a lot of them lived over on Bleecker Street. Pretty cool, huh? Not so much anymore. Oh, well, we're gonna get copyright stricken. There we go. I don't care if it is 50 cent. We can't get This
Well, I feel like Little Italy is now taken over by Chinatown.
That's correct, Phil. You're correct about that. Check it out. You have this here. You have the view here of the Museum of the Chinese American, MoCA. That's right over here on the left. Sorry, I'm trying to focus on walking right now, so I don't get run over. Yeah.
Come inside, take a look, guys.
How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing great. I think the viewers are going to love this.
Oh yeah? Why don't you not tell what the viewers what to think, Phil? Huh? Why don't you stop mansplaining to the viewers what they should like? No, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's good. You're gonna walk on Canal Street, one of the most. Here you go too, in the pretty building here, a little cast iron building here to the left. Check it out, little cast iron building. And then you have Lafayette, named after the Marquis de Lafayette, who helped the Americans in the Revolutionary War, the Continental Army. And he came to visit here in the early 1800s, and they, in honor of him, they named the street after him. But yeah, the street is famous for, shopping. You buy all kinds of stuff here. You can get all kinds of I remember when I was growing up, a lot of my friends would make trips to New York when I was a little kid. And it was like they came back from a magical land. They're like, look at what I brought. It's an ID that says I'm 25, and you're like 10 years old. Or you can get a fake diploma around here. You get a fake Harvard diploma if you wanted it.
I think they sell turtles and stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah, they still sell that too. So yeah, we're walking up, west, by the way, we're walking west on Canal Street. So there's old First National City Bank. We talked about that in a different video on the Broadway when I walked Broadway, but just so you guys know, First National City Bank of New York. Citibank. Oh. It was a bank that around the 1920s, 1930s did pretty well for itself. Even during the Depression, I believe it did pretty well for itself. Became the biggest commercial bank in the country. Good for you. Yeah, exactly. I'm really happy for them. Anyways, that's a nice little Art Deco building. Lots of different architectural styles. Now that's a little treat of being in New York. Get the little hodgepodge, a little potpourri. So this is Broadway now. We're gonna be crossing Broadway. Keep in mind too, this street is brutal traffic on a weekday or whatever. Huh?
Rush hour.
Oh yeah.
5 p.m.
Yeah, because why, Phil? That's right, Phil. Nice work. There's the Holland Tunnel, which we'll be coming up to here in a little bit. We'll pass by it.
I'm from Jersey,
So you know all about the Holland Tunnel. But look, you can see in the north, this is all Broadway once again. So this would be Broadway taking you up into, Soho. And then down there, we'll be taking you down into Tribeca. See all that area. There's the Woolworth building, huh? Pretty cool. Let's go, Phil. Don't be scared. You're scared. You're plain scared. All right, we got a little bit of a breathing room here. It's a little wild, man. All right, so what I was saying, Chinatown too. I also mentioned that the Chinatown, we're still kind of walking at the edges of it here now. But it's important to keep in mind about Chinatown is that it's a fairly new phenomenon. All of this here, you see all the Chinese lettering and everything. Chinatown is really kind of so what happened was the first Chinese started coming around the mid-1800s after the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869, 1870. And a lot of them came here because the racism, believe it or not, was actually even worse out in the West. So they came here and they settled in what was then the 5 Points, and they settled among all the immigrants and everything there, and it was mostly men. And there was a lot of racism towards it. This is a cool little view. Look at the little cobblestones. There was like a lot of racism towards the Chinese, especially because it was all dudes, you know? Because men ruin everything, right? So why would you give them? So anyways, 1882, the racism got so bad, there was the Chinese Exclusion Act. This is like a must-know for any American. We are capable of passing laws like that. It was called the Chinese Exclusion Act. It basically said no more Chinese. If you're here, it's hard to leave and come back, and you can't bring your family. It was a total mess. Anyways, it wasn't until after World War II that was actually lifted. And then in 1965, the Hart-Celler Act was passed, which was basically like getting rid of a lot of quotas that were passed in the early 1900s, with a preference to people who had been more kind of limited over the years, which was Latin America and the Chinese in Asia. Watch out for that step. And so after that, the floodgates opened, and the Chinese poured in, and they settled in what is today, or what was then, at least back in the day, the 5 Points, which is today Chinatown. Watch that step, Phil. There you go. And here, check it out. Looking north, you can see there again. You can see a little couple fighting there to the right too. Yikes.
Always great stuff.
You got to do everything in public here in New York. That's one thing that's for sure, man.
Well, we don't have much room.
No, there's nowhere to go. Yeah, it's like either you do it in public, yeah, you do it, or you do it at home in front of roommates or something, probably. But yeah, there's that was a pretty street here called Green Street. It's a very famous street in Soho. We'll cover it eventually. Don't you worry, kids. Anyways, what was I saying? I forgot. I totally get. Oh yeah, the Chinatown thing. 1960s. The original ones came into that area, which it was, you know, in the 1800s was 5 Points.
Exclusion Act.
Yeah, covered that. But then, so what happened is now you have more of these Chinese coming in from other parts of China, like I said, the Fujian province, and they're settling in what is, quote, New Chinatown, east of the Bowery, which is where we started. And there are 4 other Chinatowns in New York, by the way.
Really?
Yes, 4 other, 2 in Brooklyn and 2 in Queens, arguably more, depending on what you consider a town. So you have 2 in Queens, you have Flushing, you have Elmhurst, you have 2 in Brooklyn, you have down in the Bensonhurst area, you have one as well in Sunset Park. So you got all. Let's see all this stuff going on here. Whoop. Watch your step, Phil. Look at this. You can see the names. So these are another cast iron front. You can see the little names down there. You see those names on there?
Yeah.
You can always, when you see cast iron buildings, you can always see the little imprint there of where they made the iron. So you'll see different ones. Kind of cool. You should look for when you're around here. But like I said, the mid to the late 1800s was when cast iron was a big thing here in New York. Ah, look at this little trick. You're going to use this trick when you come to New York. You're going to look like a genius. Or a complete tool, one of the two. Either way, you can thank me. West Broadway, here we go. Well, now once again, this is all Tribeca here. This is like kind of the heart of Tribeca. You can start seeing how the streets kind of go at an angle. That's where Tribeca gets its name, Triangle Below Canal. That's cute. The doggies.
I don't want somebody.
How are you doing, Phil? This hasn't been such a bad walk so far.
No, it hasn't.
You got any questions?
I think there's just so much interesting stuff that goes on over here.
Nice save, dude.
You can kind of just, be occupied forever. Also, I'm just trying to navigate not getting bombarded by people.
Yeah, it is kind of nuts. Yeah, we actually lucked out that it's not the most beautiful day today, so there's not a ton of people out, but this area would be just completely clogged with people on a nice day, so we're lucky.
Yeah, this is Canal Street when it's slow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you picked the perfect day.
Yeah, and like I said, we walked basically through Chinatown, but we also walked through the beginning of Little Italy, which is really only 3 blocks, by the way. Yeah, I've talked about that in other videos, and in the Little Italy video. I'll probably walk Mulberry at some point. But yeah, it's not really Little Italy anymore. It is like, you know, the Lions, and they have a group and they have their festivals and stuff, but not any Italians that live there as much anymore.
Yeah, no.
They've moved away, but that's the American dream. You come here, you assimilate, right? That's a lot of the Italians wanted to do. That was their goal. So, you know, you don't have Little Italy anymore, a real one, I guess, but you do have Staten Island, right? Which, by the way,
Fair trade.
very fair trade. But Staten Island's the largest concentration of Italian Americans in the United States.
Really?
Yeah. Check it out. You see north, we're out walking 6th Ave. Look at that, Phil. Great camera work. Great camera work. You're killing it. That's 6th Ave, AKA Avenue of the Americas. Which, why is it named that, Phil? That's a good question. It's because Fiorella LaGuardia decided to name it that because they were hosting like this Pan-American conference here in the 40s, and to impress all of the, you know, Western Hemisphere countries and Latin American countries, he said, you know what, I'm going to name this Avenue of the Americas, show you how welcoming I am. And they wanted to rename it the Avenue of the Americas. Didn't stick. No one wanted to call it that. Still don't. So it's still 6th Ave. Yeah, if you ask people how to get to Avenue Americas, they're gonna know you're a tourist.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they're gonna rob you. So don't do it.
And then they're gonna buy 6th Ave over there.
Yeah, exactly. After they take your money, after they take your cell phone, they'll be like, oh, you were asking for 6th Ave, it's right over there. So they'll rob you, but they'll be helpful about it. There's a Jackie Robinson Museum. It's fairly new. They just really opened this. Pretty cool. Well, he, by the way, famously was, you know, first black baseball player for the Brooklyn Dodgers, signed in 1947. Branch Rickey, the famous general manager, signed him over. There's a plaque over in Brooklyn Heights, over where the offices used to be. But man, that guy went through some shit to be a baseball player. Holy crap. There's all the stories. And even he was in the military too. He's like a hell of an athlete. He played like every sport possible at UCLA and all these places. Anyways, like even when he was in the military, you know what he did? They tried to make him move to the back of a bus, military bus. He said no.
Really?
Yeah. He was an original Rosa Parks.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you can see all these pictures of him and stuff. Nope. March on Washington. There you go, look at all that. You're just getting yourself in the mirror, aren't you, Phil?
A little bit.
Yeah, you're just checking, look at that. You can see us. There's us. Hey, how are you?
Hey.
How you doing? All right. The people inside are like, hi?
Yeah, they're like,
Oh yeah, but here you got, well, it's traffic. You got great traffic here, but you also have, there's Tribeca once again, Hudson. Remember, Hudson up here, by the way, you take a ride on Hudson, you get to the neighborhood known as Hudson Square. Have you heard of Hudson Square, Phil? We did a video there. You filmed it. I remember this video specifically. Oh yeah. That's where they invented juji fruits. Remember we talked about that? The juji fruits, the ones that stick to your teeth?
okay.
Henry Hyde, that name of that factory is like a candy factory. It's now Google offices. It's in Hudson Square. All this to say that Hudson Square is like one of these neighborhoods that's like, hey, well, come stay here. Come rent an apartment here. We're Hudson Square. Isn't this the coolest? When just like 20 years ago, there was nothing there. Well, there was there, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't that.
It's like
And it wasn't that expensive.
like an industry city.
Yeah, like a lot of places, frankly. But it was very like, it was all like there was a lot of printers. It was one of the printing districts of New York, way back in the day. And now you have like fancy hotels and stuff here. You can look up there. And this all here, by the way, is kind of the beginnings of,
The rush hour.
that's right, of the Holland Tunnel, baby. Check this out. This is kind of funny. This is kind of a little insider baseball in New York. A little notice of liquor license application, huh? So whenever a restaurant or something has to apply for a liquor license, they got to give notice and all that stuff, and then they got to go to like the community boards and stuff and like plead their case.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've been to a couple community boards when I lived in Greenpoint. I went to a couple, and it's interesting. Have you ever been to one of those?
No.
So community board is like there's all these community board districts in New York, and it's basically like an advisory body. So let's say they're going to plan a rezoning. The city proposes it. This committee in the city proposes it, and then it's given over to the community boards who then vote on it. But it's not binding. So that's actually where a lot of like the anger comes from, is because a lot of times they'll say, we don't want this crap. And the city's like, cool, thanks. We're just going to go ahead and stop it anyway. Yeah. So yeah, the community boards, you know, they're like people from the community, you're like, yeah, no shit. But no, it's like, you know, you apply.
Community, you say.
Community, exactly. Get this, they're from the community. But no, the borough president picks the community board members, appoints them.
Really?
Yeah.
And who's the community board usually? Like,
It's like business owners,
Okay.
people who've lived there for 50 years, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
You can apply for it. So yeah, if I could see all this traffic, man, this is all for the Holland Tunnel, and this is post-congestion pricing, man. So you know that this must be real bad before that. We got congestion pricing here in New York now. Yeah, let's cross, Phil. Come on. I mean, it seems to be pretty good, actually. It's kind of like, I mean, the traffic's been a lot better. The couple times that I've driven in the city, it's helped a lot. Yeah, there you go. See down here. Good view down Hudson. Got all these fancy hotels. The Arlo Hotel. I did a comedy show at the Arlo Hotel during Fashion Week once.
Really?
Yeah, it was because they used it as a models lounge,
Oh, okay.
and I did a comedy show for a bunch of models
Nice.
with a bunch of other comedians and friends.
I'm sure they were a great crowd.
One of the worst shows I've ever done in
don't
it.
say.
Yeah, no, I don't. I do say, Phil.
Ah.
I do say.
I always thought hot people were known for having a great sense of humor.
You thought wrong, man. I'm sorry to break it to you, but surprisingly, they were all on their phones most of the time,
Yeah, who would've thought?
and at best they would do this, and then keep going back to their phone. Keep going back to, you know, texting, you know, Mark Jacobs or whoever they're texting. So yeah, Renwick. This is named after a guy named, I believe it's James Renwick Sr., whose son, James Renwick Jr., ended up designing new St. Patrick's Cathedral, but also Grace Church in the East Village. He got that commission to design a church at 23 years old. Come on, man, that's pretty cool. 23 years old, you're designing, you know, neo-Gothic architecture.
Is he like a Nepo baby?
His dad wasn't I don't think his dad was an architect. He was influential.
A colonial Nepo baby?
Yeah, exactly. Colonial Nepo babies. Some things are as old as the country itself. Isn't that right? But yeah, he designed it at sort of 25, I think it was finished. It's nuts. Think about that, man. 25 years old, what were you designing? Designing, you know, nothing. Going to the bars and. All right, I'm not going to get too far into what I used to do at 25. That's probably better now I don't. But yeah, you can see all these little older houses and stuff here. Kind of cool. And up here, see those. I believe that's where there's a cookbook store. A bunch of antique cookbooks. A woman runs an antique cookbook store. I don't know if that's it. It might be. I don't want to turn there though. We can't turn off.
Most gentrified thing in the world. Antique.
It's been there for a while, I think. Yeah, antique cookbooks.
Useless business I've ever heard of.
You stop it, Phil. There's people who like it. There's people who collect them. You know what? I'll say this. I'll stand up for an antique cookbook store any day of the week over a freaking Chipotle. Tell you that.
That's fair. All right.
And get this. And here's the important thing about businesses like that. You know, what a concept, huh? Have a business where someone's actually passionate about what they're doing business there for. They're not just trying to make a killing. She's not trying to get rich, because if she is, she's not going to. But she got passion for it. You can walk in there, they'll talk your ear off about antique cookbooks, you know. Those are the best stores in New York, in my opinion. Yeah, exactly. Wait, I got more to tell you about cookbooks. Yeah. So, yeah, we're getting over there to the West Side Highway. That's West Street over there. You can kind of see it.
Yes. I love these areas.
What, the water?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. West Side Highway. So all you know, the West Side Highway used to actually be elevated.
Really?
Yeah, it used to be elevated from the 1920s to like the 1970s, dude. In 1973, actually, there was a collapse. It collapsed.
Oh.
Yeah, it freaking collapsed. Just north of here, a big chunk collapsed. And for irony, here's some irony for you. It collapsed because a truck carrying asphalt to reinforce the bridge was on, and it was too heavy, and it just collapsed through. So go figure.
And did it have like a top and a bottom, like people could drive below?
Well, yeah, you could be under it. Yeah, that's the whole idea, is you elevate it and you have space all underneath. So they ended up getting rid of the whole elevated thing. They were going to make this big thing called the Westway. It was going to be this big highway, and that ended up, they ended up scrapping that. In the 80s, they scrapped it. But there was a big back and forth. This judge kind of like put the death knell, one of the death knells in it, based on like the striped bass population in the water. It was this whole thing, and people were like, "That's a bunch of baloney. That's a bunch of baloney." But it, you know, it held up eventually, and they didn't do it. So we got to find a way to cross here. Not a ton of crosswalks here. Well, although we can also just finish here. This is the end of the canal. There, check this out though. Look at that. I love that building there though. That big building. You see that? That thing looks like a little what is it? Like a modern cat head or something. Modern cat head. Minecraft. There you go. Thank you. Here, stand over here and we'll get the background. And I guess we could just wrap it here. Because we made it all the way. Look at us. Huh? We made it all the way down Canal Street. Isn't that cool? All the way down Canal Street. What'd you think, Phil?
I had a good time. I mean, I always hang out in Chinatown and Canal Street. So
yeah.
It's kind of cool to...
Phil's always selling his wares
yes.
in Canal Street. Yeah. How long did it take us to get here?
41 minutes and 30 seconds.
Wow, look at that. 41 minutes. That's a video, man. You guys got some stuff there.
Yeah.
All right, well, yeah, we made it to the end, guys. Thanks for sticking around this long. I'm sorry it wasn't 30 seconds or 45 seconds video, like some of you guys may be used to. But yeah, I wanted to cover the whole street. You got a chance to see what it was like on a quiet day, not a ton of people, which is nice. But yeah, if you liked it, I don't know, like and subscribe, that whole thing. Also, too, you know, check out the Patreon, baby. Huge help. I appreciate everyone who's on there. You guys, your names are all going to be draped here on the screen. Really appreciate it. That's what allows me to do all this. Also, too, if you can't do any of that stuff, at least share it with a friend. We'll grow it the old-fashioned way, huh? Word of mouth. One person tells two friends, those people tell two friends, those people tell two friends. That's 200 people right there. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Phil, we can go back to sell your Discman. Yeah, so Phil sells Discmans. Discmen. Or Discmen. That's what he sells now. But yeah, I don't know, man. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm going to get out of here and stop rambling. West Side Highway, Canal Street, New York City, USA, world. All right, I'm out of here. All right, see y'all later. Thanks, guys. Sick.